If we find ourselves with any free time at all in our days, that is time where we actually have time to think, then we may experience a range of feelings we don't expect. For some, that spare time is the rare moment beyond work, friends, family, kids, relationships, sports, hobbies, and entertainment. And for others that aren't quite as busy for whatever reason, that free time may be a more frequent moment. If you're in the latter group, finding yourself without the energy to meet the time that you do have, and then losing it to things you're not really sure you want to do, then I'm going to suggest one possible reason why. If you're in the busy group, then I just challenge you with one simple question that the exercise in the second half of this video will also help answer. Are you running in the right direction? Are the things you're doing actually the right ones to create the story in your life that you always imagined? It's extra important to continually confirm that you're on course when you're going fast, not less. But back to both of those in a few minutes. When it comes to free time, we think we like the idea until we actually have it and don't know what to do with it. At first, we might think, finally, I have some time. We might assume the energy to do the things we've been thinking about doing while we were so busy will come with that time. Well, maybe. Maybe at first. But if you've had lots of time in your life, then you can quickly discredit that certainty. Time and energy are not necessarily related in the way you think, and our ideas of what we think we want to do with them can quickly be displaced by others. Yes, unexpectedly or perhaps worse, knowingly, those that find themselves with too much free time might actually start to dread it without the right tools. You might fill your life with anything at all that is anyone else's plan, just so you don't have to think about your own plan for your own life. It sounds crazy, but we definitely do it. And if we're honest with ourselves, we probably do it through the same behaviors that we convince ourselves are the plan. It's hard to tell a distraction from the plan when we're still distracting ourselves from the planning. I've spoken to more than a few people throughout the years that are terrified of the idea of what would happen if they lost the structure of their life that keeps them engaged in something they feel is better than the alternative. For a lot of people I've talked to, this is the idea of not having their job. And I'm talking about something beyond the idea of not being able to have money to survive. This fear comes as no great surprise. A job is oftentimes the greatest source of externally organized planning for our lives. In order to confront the fear, we need to know we have meaningful strategies that we're in control of to get us through these situations. We need to know where we have control in our lives. I'm not saying the goal is not to have a job, but to have more control in your life where you can exert it. The structure in our lives ideally starts for us when we're very young. Our parents or guardians set limits for us when we don't quite know how to manage the complexities of the body we coexist with throughout our life. They get us to eat before we implode because we let ourselves crash from hunger. They put us to bed before we get so tired that we implode from that too. Our TV time might be limited. If we're lucky, we have a private tutor teaching us how to learn. We like structure. We might not always like the structure applied to our lives, but I think we definitely need structure, so we might as well take as much personal responsibility for it as we can manage. And it's not surprising that if we don't put the thought into building the structure for what we should do with our time when we don't have any guardrails, like being at a job, that we're always at risk of heading into a crash. We could end up dead-ending on a journey we thought was going to be more meaningful to us than it was. We could end up missing our chance to start moving in a better general direction. I think there's value in improvising and experimenting and going with the flow in different situations of life. In other words, I don't think we should live like machines stuck in a pre-programmed routine. But I think if we want specific outcomes in our lives, many times that involves more than going with the flow, or we'll more likely end up going where other people and influences want. We need design in our lives, both individually and in the local community and society that surrounds us. We need a plan. Speaking personally, I have a lot of time right now, and thus theoretically a lot of energy too. But energy doesn't come hand in hand with time. Energy comes from our willingness to invest it. We're built for survival through energy expenditure in the pursuit of specific biologically meaningful goals. But speaking of not getting stuck in a pre-programmed routine for our lives, a few things have changed in the modern version of that story of survival and meaning. And so in modern life, we only spend energy we believe benefits the story of our meaning. And to believe the benefits, we have to understand our story. If I don't structure my life according to a story that I understand, then I'm energetically doomed. I personally can't get up every day and improvise what I'm going to do. I might leave blocks of time for improvisation, but if I don't have premeditated and considered ideas for how to fill that time according to a meaningful story of my life, then that life has a strong chance of becoming very stressful for me. First off, I might feel like crap because I'm not able to easily figure out what I can do to create any value in my life. And if I consistently fail to create value in my life, then I lose motivation in my life to spend any energy. I'm heading towards depression. And then it's more likely I'll fall prey to someone else's design for how I should fill my time, if I haven't already been swept up in that, because I definitely don't want to only feel like crap. I might as well have company. If I don't have a course for my life that I believe will drive me towards the value in life that I want, then going back to the beginning of this video, I'll begin to either dread my time because I have no energy to engage with it and get depressed, or I'll waste my time in relation to what is actually meaningful to me by structuring it around what's meaningful to someone else. Sure, Netflix can be valuable to me, absolutely, but when it becomes part of the core structure of my life, then that's not entertainment anymore. That's me adopting someone's product as the meaning of my life. And I've been on and take rides on that gradient as well, definitely. The entertainment industry is probably the slipperiest of slippery slopes. Again, we need a strategy to stay honest with ourselves. We won't spend energy on what has no connection between what we do and what we believe is beneficial to us, at least not for very long, even if we are actually spending time on things that are meaningful to us. What matters is what you believe. Our life comes down to the story we ourselves narrate or have narrated to us. And to repeat, you can't figure out what's actually meaningful to you until you understand the narration of that story. And the more highly competitive or specific goals your story involves accomplishing, then at some point the more specific your plan needs to be about the things you need to be practicing and the things you need to be limiting in order to get that story written. That's the hard reality of life, that we have to make choices against the hard limits of reality. But let's switch gears into the practical and see if we can't alter the energy we feel about the things we want to be doing or not doing, as well as thinking a bit about the direction we're pointing ourselves in with the things we're doing today. Watch what happens when you sit down and just do a simple exercise, making a life plan. Take a piece of paper or open up your notes app on your computer if you want, and make a space for a few time ranges and a list below them. 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month. What are the things you're doing with your time right now? Put it under 1 month. You can limit your thinking to what you do outside of work or what you do at work if that's what your focus is right now. Then think about how those activities you do today extrapolate into what new opportunities or abilities you might have 1 year from now. Are those things you're doing right now things you want to be pursuing to create those outcomes in your life? Now think backwards from what you would want in 1 year and write those things down under the 1 year section. Again, pay attention to the relation between what you want for the future you and what you're doing now. Now bridge the gaps. What habits would you need to have built in 6 months to achieve those things in 1 year? And then what would you need to be doing consistently 3 months from now to achieve those things? Finally, how do you map those 3-month habits to what you need to be doing right now in this month? Play around with this exercise a little bit, going back and forth until you've thought a bit about what you're doing and enjoying or not enjoying today, as well as what you would like to be doing 1 year from now. They're both important. Maybe what you're doing today does strongly map to what you want to be doing 1 year from now, and you haven't realized it. Maybe that realization can be the difference in doing it consistently. Maybe there are accessory things you need to also be doing in order to be more strongly moving towards those goals, and you can build those habits in the next 3 months. I'm pretty sure you're going to view your life differently when you consciously consider the design of your life. Some things take on new meaning and give you a feeling of inspiration that unlocks the energy that leads to accomplishment. And other things you do today become less meaningful, and your feelings toward the energy you expend for those things might change as well. While I think you can and should adapt this exercise and make it your own so that it works for you, here are a few tips and limits to the exercise I think are valuable. Don't go crazy and set 10 things you want to do in a year. In most cases, that's going to be way too non-specific. Try to think of the big 2 or maximum 3, and even among those, be clear which is the most important thing that if you accomplished would make the biggest difference in your life. A lot of accomplishments realize a lot of benefit that we didn't see coming, but were also a part of its design. Aligning one thing in your life, if it's the most fundamental to what you want, can have lots of knock-on effects. Similarly, be sure that the things you're committing to in the next month are things you can do consistently. And so try to have a core 3 things you're working on. And if you're not able to meet that, then adjust down until you consistently do 1 before adding more. The middle periods of 3 and 6 months of planning can be a little more fluid because ideally you should redo this exercise every month or so. And what you learned in that month is going to change your mind about what you need to be working towards to reach your longer term goals. And therein lies the second tip. Don't just do this once and robotically stick to the plan. Learn and adjust and keep reminding yourself about the continuously evolving meaning of the story you're writing. And if you started by separating your work life from your personal life, start trying to merge those 2 tracks at some point in the future. It's a really unhealthy habit we have of keeping those 2 things disconnected. Having something to work towards that matters to you is going to change the energy you have to connect with your life. But if the exercise doesn't give you any motivation, then maybe you need to think outside the box a little bit more in order to connect with yourself. It's not the point of this video how to understand what's actually meaningful to you, although that's extremely important, but think about the things that catch your attention. What kind of stories do you read or see in the world that give you inspiration? And don't go overboard at first, but also don't forget that 1 year isn't always the best time frame to work with. You're going to cross many 1-year finishing lines in your life, so it's both useful and important to make sure they're connected with a bigger vision. What's your 10-year goal, and how would you work backwards from that to make sure your 1-year goals are on target? And way beyond that, if we're blessed with 100 years of quality life, what would we want to look back on our lives and see? What lifelong challenge and mission would be so worthwhile to look back on that it gave you energy to take on? Maybe that's the best way to understand what's truly meaningful in life. Having an actual plan for your life may end up being the single most impactful choice you make in life. And one last critical tip. If you wrote your goals on a notes app on your phone or computer, or if your piece of paper is an illegible mess, then take the time to translate your work onto something visually clean that exists in real life, and not only in a virtual world, and put it up somewhere that you will consistently see it and remind yourself what your plan is. Other people and companies try to fill our lives with pop-up notifications and advertisements and physical and mental reminders everywhere why we need to pay attention to them. They do it because it works. So why in the world aren't you taking your own ideas for your life and putting them front and center where you'll see them as the primary guideposts in your life? Don't hide away your own life programming where you have to go looking to remember it and see it. Bring them into the real world and be proud of it and see what you want to see in life. Hopefully these ideas click with you, but please don't just listen, but do. That's the only way that you give yourself a chance at change. I know that this simple exercise picks me up and helps me stay focused, and I think there's a good chance it will do the same for you. You can unlock time in your life by unlocking the energy you have to spend it. And I think you'll also find that understanding your story more and more deeply helps attract you to the right external influences and away from the wrong ones. Good luck and peace out, my friends.